Welcome back to Life the Battlefield, where truth stands tall and falsehood gets exposed. I'm your host, Mario Bekes. Today's guest isn't here to sell you supplements or six-pack shortcuts. She is here to deliver something far more powerful. The truth, the fact. Dr. Liz Isenring is a clinical nutritionist, professor and founder of Dr. Liz Nutrition. She walked away from the system, the titles, the institution, to build something of her own. Why? Because she was tired of watching people being misled by noise, while science stayed silent. We talk dieting myths, real health, why most fitness influencers are just marketing machines with ring lights, and yes, we'll dig into TRT, very famous, steroids and hormonal shortcuts. What's really happening behind those viral before and after reels? If you ever felt confused by health advice, if you ever question who to trust, or if you are just tired of fake gurus preaching from protein pedestals, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the Life, the Battlefield, Dr. Liz. Hello, Dr. Liz.
Hi, Mario. How are you?
Not bad. Dr. Liz, first of all, thank you for coming from not so sunny Queensland, but looks like, that traveling was being interrupted with some wind or
yes, we've made it to Sydney, which is wonderful. But apparently only one of the runways was open because of all the wind coming into Sydney, but we made it, so that's great.
That's a good one. So look, again, thank you. Today interview is a little bit different than anything I've done before. And talking to someone like yourself, expert, it's imperative for people to understand what a health it is. Mm-hmm. We'll come to the bottom of this, what a health it is. But for our audience, who is Dr. Liz? Okay, just want to find out who is Dr. Liz because I want to talk about your career. Why did you walk away from the corporate world to become Dr. Liz? Mm-hmm. So who's Dr. Liz?
Who's Dr. Liz? In a nutshell, thank you, Mario. I'm known probably most for my work. I'm a professor of nutrition and dietetics. So I've had decades studying nutrition. I'm probably most known for my work in helping people with cancer and older adults. Yeah. And I guess more recently, I got frustrated with just working in hospitals and universities and taking so long for research to actually trickle down to help people. Yeah. And so more recently now, I'm really just wanting to help people to be healthy. And so that's it. So using all the different bits. That's why it's a hard question. In a nutshell, who's Dr. Liz? I think I'm just passionate about finding out how things work. Yeah. I'm passionate about people being healthy and well so that they can live an optimal life. So that's...
Look, it's easy for me to talk about things because I'm asking you questions. And that's like, I'm admiring you for the two things. First of all, the courage to speak who you are. Because people usually have a tendency to, to sweeten and, to polish their resume and, be seen in a light they're usually not. Mm-hmm. But I saw you so many times in my life, and you never change for who you are. My question is, why would you walk away from the stable job? Mm-hmm. Why would you walk away from the titles? When I was doing the intro today, I realized that you just not walk away from the titles, but you walk away from maybe most avoiding job, you get a salary every month. Mm-hmm. You go into uncertainty. Did you go into school, become professor too?
No, that was completely it. Why? That to me was the pinnacle, and that's what I'd been, working towards my whole life. Why? I think it was really just out of frustration and knowing that there's got to be a better way of actually helping people. I really think it was that. I felt all, and I refer to myself as a recovering academic. My name is Dr. Liz. Right. I'm a recovering academic. So I think at the heart of it, I love the academic stuff. I'm curious. I love research. I'm very good at patterns. I'm good at linking things together. Yeah. but I get frustrated about how long it takes. There's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of policies, and what I call unintended consequences. So sometimes I think we're chasing policies or funding rather than actually getting the work out there that can help people. So to answer your question, it was easy and hard. It was easy in that I felt I'd reached everything. I felt I had done everything I could do, and I really wanted to make a difference. Yes. So it was easy in that respect. It was very hard in that my whole identity was wrapped up in, in being a professor and being at that senior position. So that bit absolutely can be quite hard.
Can I ask you, like in your own words, when you studied, when you go in the corporate world and then you ventured into the private world, it's like to become your own boss, you know what I mean? Are you disappointed how the health system functioning? What was the most frustrating for you, like in that career, being surrounded with the other academics, other professors, other doctors? Yeah. What was the most frustrating for you in that?
I think it really came to a head when I had my two friends, very quick succession, within a couple of weeks each other, got diagnosed for cancer, different types of cancer, but then go through the same treatment. And, there's silos of really good stuff within our healthcare system, but it's fractured and no one talks to each other. There's miscommunication. And I think it was incredibly frustrating that I'd spent decades working, particularly in nutrition, to improve, the nutrition care for people with cancer. And ironically, I was one of a team that got awarded internationally for some of our work, in people with cancer. But yet my friends going through their treatment weren't actually being told about nutrition or weren't being supported, and there were so many challenges. So I think it was just seeing it through their eyes, just knowing that it's fractured. There's so many challenges. And not to put it on the doctors and the nurses and the other specialists, like people are passionate, they're working so hard, they're trying to do the best they can, but I think the actual system, there are some major challenges in terms of communication and treating the person, I guess, as a whole person. We've almost become so specialised now that the other specialists don't want to know about something else, So if someone goes in with diabetes but then has a reflux or another issue, it's almost like, I don't deal with that.
I don't deal with that one.
Exactly.
Yes,
And so everyone's looking. You know what? It's like the blind men trying to look at the elephant. You've heard that story where the blind men are trying to describe an elephant, but they're all, one bit's talking about the trunk, one bit's talking about the tail. They're all looking at it from a different perspective rather than actually seeing the elephant. And I think that's the challenge we have now, is that we've almost got so much specialisation that we're not actually looking at the whole person and what's best for the person. So I think that's my frustration. And I can understand it. I was one of those specialists. But I think we have to do better. It's a broken system, and I think unless we really, what's going to happen in the next couple of decades if we don't manage chronic disease, it's major challenges.
Before we continue, I just want to clarify one simple thing. What it takes to become professor?
Aha, okay. So I guess what we call the ticket to ride is the PhD. Yeah. So once you've completed your PhD, which means that you've made a significant contribution internationally to that area of work, and then you go through the academic system. So then generally it's lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor and professor. And so to get to professor stage really means that you're internationally recognised in your field of work, and it's not just you saying that I'm an expert, it's actually your peers and your colleagues who have looked at your work and your publications who are actually saying that. So it's a little bit...
It's very important for me that we just that's like a sort of the base work for the rest conversation I would like to have with you today, because as I said, today podcast is not about selling woo-woos or supplements or shortcuts for the six-pack. There's plenty of those podcasters there who are promoting these ones. I learned now I'm 52, thanks to you. Again, guys, I just want to say, Dr. Lee's helping me personally with my health. And I know where I was and where I am right now. So I take a word from the Dr. Lee's, not from the fitness influencers. but it's very important for me that we have this foundation, that we understand that you're a professor, and to be professor, what takes to be professor. But doesn't minimize my next question, doesn't put less importance. Courage. I want to talk about courage. You say that there's a moment when the two of your colleagues being diagnosed with a cancer, but then needs to have the courage to say like, okay, I don't want to ask what the salary was, but
it's rather nice.
It was sizable, right?
It was sizable, yeah.
That you say like, okay, my 6 figure, I don't want it. I want to do uncertainty. Okay, I just want to. What was the moment you said that's enough? I want to make real change. Apart of those your two colleagues being diagnosed with cancer.
I think it was almost like
the
perfect storm. Is it? Well, thank you.
I can say this, you can't.
Is it? No, that's right. Thank you. Is it balls, or is it just, I don't know, not fully thinking things through? I don't know. It's a fine line sometimes between courage and stupidity. Who knows? But
yes.
But I think for me, I felt I had done everything I could, I guess, within the system. I didn't feel that there was anything else that I could achieve, which I know kind of sounds a little bit strange. Of course, there's always things to do. And, as a recovering academic, I think it's fun. Thank you. I think it's funny. I like it. I have to say not all of my colleagues think it's that funny. Yeah. But by that, I mean it's a compliment. I mean, I'm naturally curious. I love teaching. I love my students. I love all that side of things. But it frustrates me that on average it takes about 15 or so years from us doing the research for it then becoming published and trickling down into improving practice. 15 years, that's crazy. And it's within my couple of decades. It's shortening. We're shaving off some time, but it's still a long time. I think it'll prove.
You think that's a long time?
I do, from actually doing the research to then helping the individual person. I mean, if someone's got cancer now, they don't, they want support now. They don't want to wait 10, 15 years for, improvements in care to trickle down to them. So
I'd like to bring into conversation somebody who died a couple of centuries ago. His name is Miyamoto Musashi. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. Yeah. So he wrote a book which is called the Doko, 21 Principles of the Life. And he explained one of his principles that takes 1,000 days to you master some type of whatever your art it is, right? It takes another 27 years to bring to the next level, right? Basically. So like to learn. So it takes 1,000 days to learn something and 27 years to master. 15 years, it is a long time. But Miyamoto Musashi was a 17th century samurai warrior. He won 63 duels from age 16 to, late age. So I agree with you, it's a long time, but learning it is on daily basis. There's always something new happening. And I just love it how you say this, because it's a passion in you to help people. 15 years is a long time, Mario, and you want to help them today. We'll come to this a little bit later. But as I said, that's the courage, Dr. Liz. I want you to own this because people talk on a LinkedIn about courage, but then most of them holding mommy's undies, and they're talking about only. There's a difference between talking and doing, and that's what you're doing. So I'm glad that you are today here in the studio, which leads me to another question. When you left corporate world and you started your own business, what was, Dr. Liz, for you the hardest battle when you started business, if I may ask this one?
Oh, thank you for asking it.
All the CEOs now, they can learn from you.
Absolutely. And thank you for asking it, because I don't think anyone really talks about it, or if they talk about it, they that happened with other people. Like, everyone's good at putting on the mask and the success. I think there are a couple of things. One, I think initially you do feel quite isolated and alone. And I think it's because, for decades, my peers and my colleagues, they're all academics or health professionals from hospitals and universities. And so it seems... I can see it from their point of view. Why would I be leaving? It seems so. Having my group of friends and colleagues almost sort of drop away, I think was one hard part. Another really hard part, which I didn't fully appreciate until I was moving through it, was just how much of my identity was caught up in, and I think, you know, you talk about the corporates and the CEOs, I think, or even people who've become recently retired, you know, it's if work or whatever's been such a big part of their life and their identity. So I didn't realise, because as you've probably gathered, even as an academic and a professor, I still was a little bit... I often heard the term, "Oh, you're not like other academics we meet." So I've heard that a lot.
I mean, like, you
I
know,
have heard that a lot.
I mean, like humiliation, like, you know, sorry to interrupt you, like, because, you know, that brings me to the point where, you know, when I was growing up, I remember my dad and my mom, you know, quite bitter about my life, but, you know, they're simple factory workers, communist type of, you know, workers, alcohol. But I remember my mom or my dad said to me, you know, I don't want to walk embarrassed on the street if you don't finish the school, high school.
Yeah.
I said, what does that even mean? It's like, you know, you need to finish some type of the school. So, you know, have the some title, even doing everything, just not cleaning the street. I said, like, okay, I finished the high school. I went to military school. But then I realized that as soon as you leave the system, you're not a part of that tribe.
Yes.
Which I hate that word, the tribe, you know, we are all the tribe, members of the tribe.
Yeah.
When I left the military, was at that part. I'm not invited anymore for the things I was, only for the big occasions on the state public holidays, you know what I mean, wear the old uniforms, like, but that's it.
Yes.
So, like, but you academic now, today and tomorrow, that's... How did you feel with that one?
Yeah. So I guess it's it's interesting you mentioned about the military, because I think that in some ways it's actually similar. So it's similar in that, once again, you know, suddenly you're not as involved in that. You're not as invited to so many things. I think, so I think where it's a little bit different is that I've always had sort of honorary adjunct status with several universities. So I still, you know, work in research with my teams and my collaborators and my students. So I'll still do that loosely, but it's often more on a sort of honorary or voluntary type basis. But that's right, it's your identity. And I didn't realise how much of it was. But I think when you're passionate about something, work really hard towards something, and it's taken decades of your life, even if you feel you're ready to embrace and do other challenges, it's still a lot of, I think, dissolving the ego or whatever you want to call it. There was a lot of working. It was a lot of who am I behind the titles, the credentials, that sort of work. What do I want to be known for? What's actually important to me? And so that can make you vulnerable, but it's also, I think, really powerful once you work through it.
First of all, imagine how many of those who don't say to you the part of the establishment, they're going to have a constipation of this interview in the CEO.
I do, well, particularly the recovering academic comment, I think it's funny. But like I say, it comes from love. I'm always going to be an academic. It's, you know,
but that's a title. So, but, you know, like, why we are people love to hurt other ones? You know what I mean? You don't belong here, don't belong there. I don't understand, you know what I mean? And I think that the hardest part it is, again, I go back to the Miyamoto Musashi. He said it's walk alone. And it's the hardest part to walk alone. You're doing these things on your own. Being the woman in the corporate world, it's difficult enough. But being a woman starting own business, it's a shit show. And everybody says, like, run the business. Like, there's a lot of these coaches and, you know, the gurus, everybody else. But in reality, I know from my perspective, my first client landed 3 years after I established my business. 3 years. I'm like, I know it's difficult and everything else, but today is not about me, it's about you, Dr. Liz. And that's why I want you guys to learn. This is the courage, mental capacity. Bravery is stupidity. I was a brave in war, and I was awarded for the stupidity because I was reckless. Well, I wasn't reckless. I wanted to die because I was in love with the woman. She didn't love me. But the thing is, that's the courage. That's a corporate world is missing. To call somebody like yourself, hi, Dr. Liz, how did you done this? The CEO, it's run the business, it's decision-making. He doesn't know what it takes to run the business. He knows how to do decision based on the numbers. That's the courage you have, which is going to help many, many other people. And in that respect, I want to ask you, once when you ventured out of the corporate world. And he's like, okay, hi, my name is Dr. Liz. I'm a recovered academic.
That's right. How can I help you? That's right.
And then suddenly you have it's a jungle of the fitness influences, health influences, nutritional influences, which I can't understand. I'm seeing so many of those ones. But first and foremost question, how did you stay composed and grounded when you realize I left academics and establishment here where everybody's, educated, and I come into field or between no man's land. I'll call it no man's land. And I mean, they suddenly have no certificates, no education, not even high schools. People who says, telling other people how to live healthy life. How did you stay grounded?
That
Drugs,
is a
alcohol.
good. Yeah, that's right. Be the role model.
It's like,
that is a really good question, and I don't think I probably fully appreciated just exactly how much the social media influences and whatever sway public opinion. Yeah. So on the one hand, because I like to understand something, and for me it's about results, it shouldn't just be about education, credentials and that side of things. So I'm very practical. I like, it should be about results. So on one hand, I like that aspect. It shouldn't just be about credentials and whatever else. On the other hand, where I did get quite surprised and shocked and then really incredibly frustrated is that what is driving, some of the people or the influencers to do it, and just the potential harm and actual confusion. I mean, some of these things we're talking about are complex issues. So trying to get it to a 3 or a 10-second soundbite, it can be frustrating. I think the other thing is, and anyone who's sort of an expert or experienced in their field will probably feel this frustration, is that it's one of those things, the more you know, the more you realise that there's nuances, it's complex. It's hard to be completely confident and black and white. I think often it's much easier to be super confident and definite if you only have a little surface level of information, because you only know a little bit. So it's very easy to, only eat bananas or cut this out or only do this. But
it doesn't work that way.
No.
But
when you,
What try to just a little bit insert myself here. I remember several years ago when I had he's even today my mentor, Professor Clive Smallman, and I was mocking his professor. His professor. But then he told me, why don't you start studying? And I was like, no, I don't need, I know everything. I was the influencer. And he says, look, Mari, I don't want to, he didn't want to bring me down, but he taught me valuable lesson about humility. And then he told me, you can't give the people advice if you don't have some type of referencing or, you have life experience, you have a combat experience. But in reality, that's opinion. But if you want to give people advice how to do it, you need to support your statements with the facts. And I'm like, what is the facts? So I need to learn this to university and the masters and everything else. And I'm very grateful that today I understand the difference between the influencer and Dr. Liz. And many times I'm seeing those influencers, regardless fitness, business coach, love coach, bullshit artists, they don't own. And when I ask, how do you know? They're upset. Now, I'll go to you, and I went to you. Now, before we continue, would you agree with me that the health is most valuable commodity in life?
Absolutely. I constantly say health is our greatest asset, and at whatever you're in, but obviously a lot of people I support are in corporates or in businesses themselves or their family. So I absolutely agree. Health is our greatest asset. But then the other interesting thing is what do we want to define as health? And I think... Can
we define what the health is?
Yeah, can we? And what it means? Yeah.
No, I'll ask you.
And see. So, sometimes originally it was kind of like just the absence of disease. And I thought, well, that's a bit boring. And that's... that's
a bit boring. Okay. You're right.
A lot of my stuff, I talk about, as optimal. I think we should have optimal health and well-being so that we can live an optimal life, and that's individual to us. For someone it might be to look amazing you know, for their wedding.
Yeah.
But as we get older, I think we have different things. You know, for me personally, it's to have the energy so that I can be the best version of me for my family, my friends, my clients. I want to spend time in nature. You know, I've got clients where, you know, for example, someone who loves surfing, he wants to be as fit and healthy as he can be for as long as he can be so that he can keep his passion of surfing going. You know, someone else is a new father at, you know, in his 50s, so he wants to be super healthy to watch his child grow up. So I think yeah, so I'd love to know what you think it is, but for me, health and well-being go hand in hand, and it's not just absence of disease, it's living, having the energy, the health, the well-being to do what you want to do. Yeah.
I think that I think we're missing one big thing, and that is that we don't listen to our body. I personally never listened to my body, because I was believing that I was going to be Mario in his 20s, you know, special forces, I can do everything else. But my life caught with me, you know that very well. You know what I mean? I was become overweight, you know what I mean? So nobody put a food in me. I eat that shit food. And I didn't listen to nobody, because then Dr. Liz doesn't know nothing. So I know everything. But then come the moment when I was breaking inside first, you know, mentally, you know, I saw that what I see in the mirror is not me. And, you know, when you come to doctor, and I can say this, you know, it's no secret, Dr. Liz, she was reading my blood results and everything was on the middle. When I go to see last time, my GP, he says to me, one of these values goes in one side, it's going to collapse. That's the end of you. So I think that for me, the health it is, as you say, living the life without worries, that I need to worry about health. So I wake up in the morning and I say, today is going to be a good day. And then Matteo from other side say, how do you know you're psychic? I say, I feel good. And that is, I think, for me, health it is that I feel good mentally, physically, and emotionally. Yep. So it's all three elements.
Yeah.
But I'll never be here where I am again if it's not your input into this. Because I've done one of the biggest mistakes, and I wanted that relate to my next question, and that is dieting. Because everybody loves the diet. Everybody has a solution for dieting. I don't think that's a one-size-fits-all. But Dr. Liz, we have a keto diet, carnivore diet. Like that bullshit artist Liver King who's lying people to eat just the liver.
Yeah.
I mean, eat only veggies,
yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't drink the water 5 days. I mean, like, seriously? This is it? So, like, I want to ask you a question. What is the some diets, you know, doing the more harm than good? And I said, like, I'm asking this as a professor, Dr. Liz, not as some influencer.
Yeah.
There's so plenty of them, and people blindly following some of those diets.
Yeah. So if we just look at the ones trending at the moment, so you've touched on a couple, but I think probably the two big ones at the moment, which I'm seeing are leading to problems, is the carnivore diet. So that's the one which is just encouraging to eat meat and liver and products.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I think, extreme fasting. So if we start with the carnivore one.
Yes, please.
Like anything too extreme, I think, is not a good thing. Like as humans, we're pretty freaking resilient. And well done. And if we actually give our body what it needs, you know, often we can prevent chronic disease and improve things. So we're very resilient. However, doing silly extreme things is generally not a great idea. So the carnivore, now what's interesting is for some people, they feel great when they first go carnivore. And why is that? It's probably because we're taking away all the crap processed foods that they might have been eating and actually just focusing on quality lean protein. And so, yeah, you know, meats and other animal products can be amazing sources of nutrients. But the problem is, once again, it's not in balance. We've got decades of really good research to show that the microbiome, all the good gut bacteria, which their favourite food, it's basically coming from plants. So if you overcompensate by basically having heaps of meat and taking away all the plant foods, for some people feel crap straight away. Some people do feel great for some time. But is it sustainable long term? Is it good for the environment long term? For me, it's make it a lifestyle, be less extreme. Maybe if you want to focus on your protein, that's great. We know protein, particularly spread out over the day, can be great for maintaining muscle. But let's make sure you're also in balance and having good your gut bacteria, we know the gut and the brain talk to each other. Don't go too extreme. So the carnivore, I'm not a fan of the carnivore, and I think it can really basically just encourage people to become a bit obsessed and extreme with things.
I think it does.
Yeah.
When I ask people who are those who are suggesting these ones, again, Professor Clive, and now to you. When I ask, how do you know? I know. How do you know? Where is the research? Where's the peer-to-peer research? Everybody's like, you don't need to go in school to know these things is a good one. Yeah. But I come back to unfortunately, my eating with my parents. And I'm very grateful. One of my very favorite people, Rodney Williams, who's my boxing coach, he told me something very interesting. He says to me, you and I are lucky because we had 20 to 30 years of good life. It's like, what does that mean? He said, Mario, our mothers make the soup, a lot of veggies. Meat was there, but not that often. But it was more the cooked, the stews and everything else. And I said, oh, God, I hated my mom because the meat was only on a Sunday.
as a special.
It was always some stew, some veggies, little bit meat, bacon, but it was always stew. And now I understand what you're saying. So what's the second one?
Well, the extreme fasting. So once again, there's all different versions of fasting around, and there's no doubt that the modern Western lifestyle, essentially we are suffering from our modern conveniences.
Yes.
So we're not moving as much. We are eating heaps of convenience food, but not only are we surrounded by convenience food, so much of it is out of a packet. And we know that there's extra chemicals and processed things. So a little bit of fasting or just not doing things too excessive can actually be very good. The reset and even intermittent fasting where perhaps you might restrict when you eat. But like anything that's taken to the extreme.
Would you say like 1 meal per day is extreme? That's my son. Tell me. Matteo, you are done there.
No. So can I, unlike the influencers are going to give a blanket answer, I'm going to give the not so sexy answer of saying it depends. And without knowing someone and doing the assessment and whatever. So what I can say is I do know some people who actually manage okay on 1 meal a day. They often will have snacks or fruit at other times, but for some people it can work. But for those who are either at growth stages or vulnerable stages or managing different conditions or on medication, it can be very challenging. And for most people are sort of designed, a couple of times a day to have a good intake of nutrition. We definitely should try and let our body use up things, so not eating too close to bed, perhaps now this is where it gets tricky. We can't do the blanket answer. Some people actually do quite well on the intermittent fasting and perhaps pushing out when they have their first meal of the day. Some people can do really well on that, but other people, would do better to either have a breakfast with some good protein or even, have some fruit. So I'm not going to give you the sexy answer. I'm going to say it depends without having the person in front of me and doing a full assessment and diagnostic. Absolutely. I want to know. I don't want to just do the blanket yes or no. I will say it depends. Let's get to know you as a person.
Do you understand now there's going to be more people who constipated now, the fitness influencers, nutritionists, people, they're out there?
Well, the big time with the either of those, the carnivore diet, that definitely will be problems. And even too much of the processed stuff, because I think years ago I had one of my clinics in a gym, and often we think the beautiful gym people, but I can tell you some of the ones I saw were not healthy at all. Huge number of gut issues and even though they had the six packs and might have looked quite good, I would argue they were not healthy and definitely didn't have a good quality of life.
When we see the six pack, and that's like, look, I don't want to run away from this, that I wasn't mesmerized at the beginning of my career being entrepreneur, you know, I wanted these things what I saw on the internet without thinking why I'm seeing all these things because algorithms offers me because I was based on my searches. Why I'm seeing all these people appealing to me with all these fleshy bodies and, you know, the solutions just by my plan. And I was believing that I should know better because I've been in school, you know, I've been in military where we've been told many things. Run away from hypothermia, don't go into cold water. Suddenly everybody goes into cold water. I'm like, man, it doesn't make a sense, you know what I mean? It's going to cause a heart attack, you know what I mean? But I'm that one who followed blindly. I was. Now, when we see the six-pack, okay, I just want to ask you now as a professional. It doesn't look healthy for me because for me to muscles being seen apart, I say I'll not take myself because I have the fat on my stomach. What they call this, visceral fat.
Around the organs is the visceral fat,
But to remove all that fat and muscles pop out, you need to do drainage of the body, of the water. Am I right or wrong?
So I think what you're referring to is when people are doing bodybuilding compositions or some of that extreme stuff where then, it's a whole sort of science of decreasing the fat levels, but then also going low on your carbs so that the muscles are sort of defined. So I guess to go back to the six-pack, healthy or not, I mean, we've all got amazing abs if we can see them. So a lot has to do with fat percentage. And so if our fat percentage is too high, then we're not going to sort of see the abs. But on the other hand, the really visible abs or where it's over-popping and overdeveloped, I will reframe it to, is your core strong? Do you have the strength to do other things rather than just focusing on one particular bit? Yeah, the functionality. Because once again, I saw people in my clinics who, had amazing abs, but they also had irritable bowel syndrome and a lot of they weren't flexible, and they also had lots of other problems, including a whole disordered way of looking at food because it was so attached to their training and the looks as opposed to nourishing. So that's a little thing that I like to say, the nourishment.
What would be your one advice before anybody venture looking for the fitness influencers online? And as I prepared some statistics, I was doing even my own video, 25 most influential fitness influencers passed away in the last 8 months across the globe under age 30. Even that Aussie guy, I think it's Tippett, surname, age 30, he announced that he says, I don't feel well, he was collapsing, everything else. They die from their aneurysm, heart attacks, and some problems with the stomach, which is irreversible, intestines being dried, whatever it is, and, of course, it couldn't come back to the normal, and they died. Now, before somebody venture losing the weight, what would you suggest to do, to come to see you?
Someone like me, but even themselves, have a look at what's going on. And I think we need to look at listening to our own body and look at it as nourishment, not punishment. Like we really need to think about what can we be doing so that we are spending more time nourishing our body, listening to what it needs, and anything that's too extreme is basically, after doing this for almost 30 years, I've realised it comes back to getting the foundation right, those daily practices and rituals and things in balance so that you can enjoy a beautiful meal with your family and friends. There's nothing worse than going out with someone who's dieting and not being able to share anything. We probably all know some of those. We all know some of those, but at the same time, thinking about what we're really doing. If we're living on coffee and energy drinks or Big Macs or everything in balance, as we say, everything in balance. But, if we are, so I'll give some examples of the common challenges I'm seeing at the moment. People with the extreme fasting. So they're trying to
what would be extreme fasting, Dr. Liz?
Once again, it comes back to the individual. So let's say someone who perhaps is only having one meal every couple of days or so, or every day or every couple of days. I am seeing this, unfortunately. I am seeing some of this. And then, but then often, they'll eat an enormous amount in one setting which is not necessarily great for digestion and can lead to a whole range of other problems. So basically, I'd like to get away from anything that's too extreme, because we know as humans we're always going to go to what's easiest.
Yes.
Let's listen to our body, let's nourish, and let's do little fine-tuning. I like to think of it as, if we think about a car in the dashboard, so I do different assessments, which I call like the optimal index, so that we can look at little changes, like we can see the tyre going down a little bit and we can pump it up before it goes flat, or we can look at what's going on with the oil gauge and we can actually do something before the engine blows up.
And how do you do this?
Rather than, I use a range of sort of different assessments and diagnostics. So some can just be simple questions, like how you're feeling, your energy, rating it on a score, how many fruits and vegetables you're eating, how much water, what's your stress levels like. But you know me, I like the science. So I also do a whole battery of diagnostic, epigenetic, gut microbiome, to what level, the wearables, to whatever level you want to go to. I can do that, but I sit it with really simple stuff on top, because for some people that's not necessary, and for others it's an added layer of detail. But basically checking in with the person. When you're 20, you feel invincible. The body is pretty resilient. You can stay up all night and do the wrong thing and get away with it. As you start hitting 30 and 40 and beyond, all those little niggles, we need to look at it as information. Our body's basically telling us that something isn't optimal or isn't ideal. We need to look at it and do those little fine-tuning, as opposed to waiting until something majorly happens, like chronic disease or cancer or heart disease. So, looking at things earlier.
I think that many diseases actually, as I say, I'm not even amateur. See, I'm here below. So, like, as an ordinary person, when I spoke with a good friend of mine, Wako Tao, he's a Taoism professor, he's a Chinese, spirituality, philosophy, everything else. He told me this. He said all our problems coming in our mouth or out of our mouth. And I was smoking. I said, really, what do you mean? He says to me, Mari, coffee. He said, I'm seeing you, coffee, Coke, cake, smoke, and it's vicious circle. I understood very quickly what he said, but I think maybe he tried to warn me, but I think that we're putting so many garbage things in our mouth, which we shouldn't put, or maybe just moderate. Smoking, absolutely not, and the Coke as well. But at that stage, I was, as you know, I was very, very, oh my God, I couldn't wake up. Yeah. I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning to have the smoke and coffee and the Coke. Yeah. I mean, but now I feel different than before. But there need to be mental shift in your life, right? That's where you're standing. We feel guilty. I felt guilty. I'll use myself for example. When I saw myself in the mirror, and that was not pleasant sight. Plus, my son was overweight, but somehow he started his own journey. I started mine a little bit later. He's going into extreme 1 meal per day, as you know, and I can't handle that. It's 5,000-6,000 calories. I mean, it's like kilo of the chicken, or like, oh man. But there's come to a point in life where we need to change our habits. Either talking to you, or doctor says, this is the end. And then everybody starts thinking differently. Now, how we need to be guilty what we're eating, and how we need to change that mental shift. How do you change, Dr. Liz? How do you help somebody say, like, okay, Mario, it's okay to smoke, but chuck it. Man, that cake, you don't need to have that cake. How do you change that guilt in somebody towards the food? Yeah.
So that's where I say it's the nourishment, not the punishment. So
that's a good one.
It's good as it. Please do that. That's it. Nourishment, not the punishment. Yeah. So I think, we all know food is an emotive topic. We think about growing up. What were some of the most special times were often around food, or any sort of celebratory times. Might have been cake, or if we feel bad, we eat. We feel angry, we eat. We feel, so food is a big part of it. We've got lots of emotions around it. But I think in some ways, if we think about it right at the principle, what is it? Food is essentially energy and nutrition for our body. So it's a balance of getting it right between what does our body need to be optimal,
Yeah.
optimal health and well-being, versus still ensuring that we are being social and that we can also, enjoy things. So I think it needs to be, so you're right. So that's why I talk about the 3 M's of these changes. So the mindset, the menu, which is the food, and then the movement. And I think if we underpin that with, I call it mission or purpose, but the why, I think we need to really drill down to why. And so why do I want to be healthy, or why do I want to make some of these changes? Is it to have the 6-pack? But that may not be long-lasting motivation. But is it to have the health and energy into my 70s, 80s, 90s so that I can play with the grandkids and do something else? Once you've sort of got a really deeper why, then I think it's easier to make some of those changes because it's not just superficial. I think the other thing I'd like to highlight is that and even if we think about that with you, is, healthy foods, rabbit food or diet food, like I only live on lettuce or whatever it is. So to also re-educate ourselves that we can have really healthy, yummy stuff, but it's nice. It doesn't have to be about deprivation and in some cases they might actually be eating more. It's just more of the right sorts of foods. So in a nutshell, I think it should be about nourishment, not punishment. So what can we add in that's going to be best for us? So just starting to focus on simple things, hydration. Are we having enough water throughout the day? Particularly now it's colder, particularly here in Sydney. I have to say it's pretty cold at the moment. So how can we do that? Yes, we can do it by having a couple of litres of water over the day, but having more fluid-based foods, soups, casseroles, fruits and vegetables, simple thing like that. Basically eating less things out of a packet and more stuff that is real food from what our grandparents would have recognised and what we evolved. As I had to say to my teenagers, we didn't evolve to try and find burgers and pizzas in the forest. They weren't around. That's something that's a more modern thing. We've grown up with things that you can pluck off a tree or come from the ground or, hunting. So that's what we've been designed to
just
eat on.
Back into my childhood.
Yes.
Because, I when I growing up, apologies. When I was growing up back in communism in Yugoslavia then, I remember September comes and my mom, she will buy, 50 kilos of the cabbage. And then we'll need to clean and salt it in the water, big wooden, barrel, sits there till the winter, right? Oh, God. Then she buy this pig, November, need to cut pit and entire pig, put in the deep freezer, trenching, the deeper parts of the meat. So we have an entire winter and spring. Then tomato, she will make tomato sauce. I'm like, come on, man, enough. And then the jam comes. I love the jam because jam was like, but I do remember winter time will come. We have a lot, as you said, stews, a lot of soups because, it's cold out, so you need to have something warm. Boom, you don't have that, just the meat. But one thing I remember as you were talking, the cakes and the cookies. Either weddings, funerals, or Sunday my mom she'll make it, some cake. There's no cake in the middle of the week. There's no cake. There's no need because on Sunday she'll make it a morning cake for the day, last couple of days maybe. That's it. Now I open the fridge. I can have any type of cake if I want.
Completely.
As you say, open the bag.
Completely. And we're surrounded by it. And even you just think of the kids, it's always someone's birthday. I know that, childcare and schools are actually looking at ways of managing that because otherwise literally every day or every second day there's a cake and, we're surrounded by stuff which as we evolve would have absolutely only been a sometimes thing or a special treat. So you love the facts. Let's go back and look at the facts. So chronic disease. So chronic disease are essentially those lifestyle diseases like some cancers, heart disease, type 2 diabetes. And basically it's because our body isn't functioning the way that it was designed to function. Exactly. And so we're getting essentially these diseases of our lifestyle, of our modern Western lifestyle. And, when I first learned about it decades ago, they were becoming increasing, but it wasn't such an issue. I look at it now, I'm seeing people in their 20s with fatty liver and really significant challenges with heart disease, so all the chronic diseases are increasing, which is crazy because...
So it's food related?
So it's food, exercise and stress are probably all the big culprits. Of course, things like smoking and alcohol as well, but absolutely food can have a tremendous impact. And we know these chronic diseases, depending at which data you look at, but anywhere from about 70 to 90% of them is preventable and manageable if we change our lifestyle. And of course, diet is a big one of those. The other thing I guess I want to mention though is that as humans, we want to take the magic pill. We want the easy way out.
Yes.
But, we're 40s, 50s, 60s. It's taken decades for these things. They haven't just happened overnight. For us, we might feel it has because suddenly we see a photo or we have a sore back or catch ourselves in the mirror. So for us, it might seem like that, but it's not. It's been decades of all the changes, the biochemistry within our body, trying to manage the increased toxic load and everything else. So it's actually happened. So the fact that we can do things in weeks and months in a more balanced way, I think is miraculously. In fact, even with things like the gut microbiome and whatever else, even in simple as hours and days internally, we're having an amazing amount of challenges. It's just that by the time they reach things that, like our blood levels and whatever else, often it might be a couple of months. But still, put that in perspective over decades. It took decades for it to develop. And yet we're seeing significant improvements within days, weeks or months. So I think it's a tremendous amount of power as a person that we can do that. But I think we've got to get away from that. And what is the worst is social media and our 3 seconds of attention and, whatever, sip this thing before bed or do these 3 magic exercises or buy my pill or whatever it might be. It's kind of, it falls in with that trap of us thinking that we want to buy the miracle thing. As you said, even though we all know better, but if someone's promising an easy fix, it's human nature. I think.
You see, that's the questions I wanted to leave for a little bit later, but I'm going to ask now. So like first question is much more easier. It's relating to your action right now, drinking water.
Yes.
How much water we should drink per day? Because I'm tired. What's your weight? How old you are? Sorry. How much water you have per day? What's your height? And there's nobody comes to me to tell me exactly how much it is. But everybody vary between 2 liters to 5 liters. And so like, don't you think that 5 liters is a little bit too excessive? Like 5 liters of water, do you understand what you're going to flush the toxins? Bro, you don't just pull the water, flush the toxins. Toxins are inside the body. Anyway, Dr. Liz, as a professional, so let's go leave all these nutrition advisors, influencers, fitness influencers, dietitians, from internet, everything else. As a professional, what's our daily intake of the water necessary for normal functioning? For normal functioning, for most people, around 2.5 litres or so per day. And then keep in mind that also, so that's from water we drink, water in foods, and exactly, teas, coffees, fruit, veggies. So it's true, alcohol I will never include in water intake because it is a diuretic. Coffee is a little bit trickier. A lot of people say, but the research shows for people who regularly drink coffee, like 1 to 3 cups a day, it actually can contribute to your water intake. If you don't have coffee very often and then have coffee, then it can have a diuretic or a effect. But for most people, around about that. Of course, if you're hot, you're sweating, you're a bigger person, then you should have more. Just as a rough guide, basically looking in the toilet after you go, and your urine, your pee, should be pale, clear to pale yellow. If you take B vitamins, then that, of course, can be a bit trickier because that can make your wee go very bright yellow. But basically, look at your wee. It should be clear to light yellow, and see how you feel. We should be getting,
if we eat things that's found in nature, like fruit, vegetables, lean proteins, you think about it, most of those foods have, 60 to 70% water content anyway. So we're actually getting quite a lot of water in our food. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are having the pizzas, the burgers, the packet food, and that stuff is often very dry. So we need liquid to digest it. So, so rough rule of thumb, roughly, 2 to 3 litres a day for most people. Yeah. That does include water, that from soups and casseroles.
70% of vegetables consist from water.
Yeah, and even
our
higher
planet is 70%
yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Our body is 70% water. Isn't that interesting now?
Isn't it? It's, and then this idea. So I think it's good. No, so Mario, I think you're coming back to what I sort of refer to as some of these universal truths or common principles. Yeah. So we can, and I'm happy to talk, nutrition science and go into the complex stuff. I love all that. But if we bring it back to the most simplistic stuff, it's basically being in tune with the rhythms and the planet. You think of how we evolved. We would have been very active chasing food or hunting and gathering. We would have been in tune with the seasons, just like you were sharing about your home time. Yeah. We would have had certain things when it was growing, then we would have preserved some stuff for the rest of the year. We wouldn't, we had stuff as it was fresh, and all the stuff found in nature does have a high water content.
Yeah, because I don't remember we being a part of having the flu in the winter, and children diseases. And I do remember in the school when if somebody has a measles, teacher will say like everybody go touch, Liz or Mario, everybody gets the measles. It's like it was compulsory. It was a normal we need to go to that part. Today it's a little bit different, but speaking about owning what people advise, I want to just reflect because this is reflection of what we're talking right now, giving advice. And the reason why I ask you for the water and what food to take. I opened her, I forgot her name entirely, Annabelle Natalie Gibson. Yet she's not in prison. People died, and I think pretty sure you told me that some of your patients left you because they had her. I want to ask you, what is your take on people like Belle Gibson who advise others, promising them that they're going to be healthy, but yet they actually not being healthy, they condition deteriorated even faster. Yeah. I want to reflect this because there's a lot of Belle Gibsons over there.
Absolutely. So I think this is the dangerous side of influencers or people without the training and the credentials giving advice. So I think it comes back to those rules. People who are overly confident or selling something. I think it comes back to the why. People who have trained or health professionals, why are they doing it? They generally do it because they want to make a difference. They want to help people. If people are selling or getting their 15 minutes of fame or whatever else, so I think it's looking at the motivation of the person. I do, that is a touchy subject for me because I do support a lot of people with cancer and it brings the whole false hope, shame, blame, or the whole emotional side to things. Yes. I also think everyone, to me, I don't really know the details, but to me, everyone's got a story. To me, it shows, there's mental health issues or something else.
Man.
There's something going on. You can say it. I'm
I think she's a mental. You cannot be a normal person telling the dying people that you can cure them. And there's a lot of these influences. And as I said, when I was doing research for this show, I spoke with my son who is 22 years old, and he has some people he's listening, following. And I said, look, Matteo, and you can't argue with him because I'm 22 years old. I know everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Okay, dude, you want to have 1 meal per day, that's fine, right? But he's not in a position to need a Belle Gibson. Even I'm afraid that there's a lot of these male and female versions of Belle Gibson. They talking the rubbish and actually people health deteriorating, which I want to bring now before talk more about what you're doing. I saw a documentary about longevity. There's some guy from Australia, lives in America, very rich. He drinks I think 150 pills per day, you know what I mean? Which doesn't make sense itself. So you don't flush with the water, 150 pills, they're sitting there. Let's go talk about longevity because as a man, I work in a gym or even the boxing. There's a guys who they're sharing the needle. Talk about testosterone, TRT, stanozol. Mari, you want some? No, thank you, bro. You know, I'm happy where I am. Longevity, hormone therapy, TRT. What is your take on this, Dr. Alex?
My take on this is beware unintended consequences. Once again, anyone promising to do something significant with one or two changes, I think doesn't understand the nuances of complexity. Do they know you? Do they know your history? Do they know your genetics? Do they know what's going on with your gut? Have they seen your blood tests? Like, have they got a full picture of you as a person, or are they just selling one thing? So I think anyone who's doing something like that, first of all, I always go back, what's the why? What's in it for them? What are they selling? And is it because they're selling a drug or a supplement? Is it fame? Is it, so what's in it for them? The second thing is, I think we should be thinking about it, is what's in it for me? And it can be attractive. It's like the magic pill. But one thing I can say for sure after, studying nutrition science for a couple of decades is beware of unintended consequences. How often do we look in silos? Like, I've been part of that frustration in nutrition, well, eggs were bad, eggs are good, go low carb, high protein. Like, every 8 to 10 years we go through a cycle because we've got macronutrients, we've got protein, fat and carbs, fibre. Like, we don't have a huge amount of stuff to play with, and then it goes too extreme. But it keeps cycling because people are looking for the magic answers rather than trying to get things in balance and fine tune. And so really, for me, the unintended consequences is be very careful, because by changing one thing in an extreme way, you potentially don't understand all the other unintended things that might be happening. And so if we take the example of the hormones or the testosterone, so it might be leading to muscles getting bigger and holding more water and all that sort of stuff. But what is it doing to all the complex intercommunication between our brain and our gut and actually our organs that are making those hormones in the first place? It gets all these complicated mixed messages. I'm producing now, I've got enough, I shouldn't be producing, so I'm producing less, and then you're injecting more. Like, So one, why are they doing it? What's in it for them? Two, why are you looking at doing it? Anything that's really extreme, for me, is you're just picking one thing, which is just the thing we can see, the signs or symptoms. I always like to go to the root cause. Like, let's look at an environment. Let's look and assess the whole thing to see what's going on. Because I can guarantee it's often, everything is all interrelated, and often it's not just one or two things. If we go and look into it, something's out of balance. Perhaps it's a combination of getting older, stress, sleep. They're into a vicious cycle of constantly, doing artificial stuff. So that's a long-winded answer of saying I would be very careful with that sort of stuff, particularly with someone who feels that they can promise you something without knowing you. They don't know you. They haven't seen your bloods. They don't know background. How can someone give you one magic thing that's going to help without truly understanding you as a person, your, as we keep saying, emotionally, mentally, physically? So I would be very wary.
One thing when I was doing this research, like when I was looking for this, was the most cause of the death, like I know the social media was driving those people with extreme bodies, like literally, to extreme, like it's a massive bodies. It's this aesthetic look, the social media. But Von Callum, the guy who, he looks like his Aussie guy who was he was Arnold Schwarzenegger, like called the double, but he's much more younger. He played him in his movie as well. He's gone mentally. He's like, literally, he says like, I think the steroids influencing my brain. He's gone crazy. Many people gone crazy, right? Like mentally unstable because of the steroids usage. So when I spoke with my doctor, I said to him, what do you think about TRT? He says to me, first tell me why you want a TRT. I said, like, I don't know. He says, who told you this? It's like, he said, Mario, it's a heart attack material, I'll tell you right now. It's like, nah. It's like, the veins become hard and this and that. It's like, I have enough. I don't want this thing. You know what I mean? First of all, it doesn't make a sense. If my testosterone, I need to boost myself that way, something needs to take it away from me. And that is not good. So I'd rather have the natural way of, you know what I mean, slowing down than try to, kill myself before the time.
Completely. And I guess to be clear, there's stuff we can do lifestyle-wise. So if we take the example of testosterone in men, yes, it naturally decreases as men get older. And, of course, that can be incredibly frustrating when you think back to yourself as a 20-year-old and, you know, everything pumping and bulging and whatever else. Healthy lifestyle, sleep, managing stress, good diet can all help. For some cases, then having medical treatment, but do it either through the doctors and having all the assessments as opposed to, you know, someone at the gym or whatever offering some injections and doing this without understanding. And a lot, you know, some of the unfortunate cases that we mentioned, are basically people with heart issues or whatever else.
Yeah, because people forget when you inject yourself the steroids. And I remember when I was in the army, and that we talk about 90s, last century, right? We used to be shared a needle. There was nobody fear of the HIV. We didn't even know what the HIV is then. We had the stanazol, right? But we felt invincible. But we added on top of this LSD as well. You know what I mean? Not sleeping, you know what I mean? And then I realized something's happening in my body. Till one day I didn't have something called a panic attack. Out of the blue, I had the feeling it was a heart attack. My doctor says to me, we need to take you off this shit. And so like, but you gave me that thing. He said, yeah, it's now enough, but need to stop. But I wanted more because I felt invincible. But then he told me, your heart, it's come to stage, becomes bigger. And I said, like, I don't understand. He said, heart is your muscle. So it doesn't affect only your thighs, your arms, affects your heart. And I said, okay, that's the stop. But people don't see that way because they just see the physique outside.
Exactly.
Now, Dr. Liz, my most important question is, why people should see you?
Why people should see me?
Why should see you?
I think the ideal
and
person,
who should see you?
I think the ideal person who can benefit from a chat with me is someone, let's say, sort of 30 plus, who wants to be in the best health and well-being so that they can live an optimal life. And so often I think I guess the people where I feel that working together we can make a tremendous difference is they've often had success in one part of their life. So they're either corporate, business, family, whatever. So we know that they can do it. But it's almost like sometimes, you know, a strength becomes a weakness. Why have they become successful? It's because they're driven. It's because they're focused. It's perhaps because they've let some of the other areas of their life go. Maybe they've cut back on sleep. Maybe they're having too much energy drinks and coffee. Maybe they're living on takeout or whatever, to focus on whatever the thing is that's made them really successful. And people can do that for decades, because as we say, the human body is absolutely amazing and resilient. But it will send us little signals, and we can ignore it for a bit, you know, a bit of brain fog or no energy, you know, a few little niggles, aches and pain. But it'll keep throwing up stuff.
Bigger and bigger.
Exactly. And I guess, and you know, full circle, this is basically how I came from, you know, supporting people with cancer, which I'll always do because that's what I know and that's where my heart lies. But you know what? If I never had to help someone with cancer again, I would be so happy. I wish we never had cancer. So my big why is because I like to problem solve. Like, what is the issue? Why are people getting cancer? That's why I'm sort of focusing more around this stuff. Because if we can really tweak and do the right things early enough, then a lot of these chronic conditions, you know, we can actually prevent, manage or reverse. And so that's my big thing, is if we can actually tweak and manage things earlier and stop, you know, the really catastrophic things from happening, then that would be ideal. So I think it's people who know that something's not quite right, but they're confused with what's going on in social media, and they appreciate, it's confusing and it's overwhelming, and we're all busy, we're all tired, it's all hard to know what to take, and there's a lot of information, and often, particularly in nutrition, this is so frustrating, it's often conflicting. So one person will say whatever, eat more fruit and veggies, it's great. Another person will say, don't eat bananas, it's going to make you fat. You know, it's always, it's always, and just to be clear, I was going to say, and just to be clear. So, and because, you know, I love the science and to me, if it works, it works. I don't care. You know, I often talk about the integration of ancient wisdom with modern science and genetics. I pull things from everywhere and treat the individual. Let's get to the root cause of what actually is the issue and let's manage that. And for a lot of people, it's just a reflection, you know, it's a reflection. And food is, just like alcohol and drugs and whatever else, it's one of the ways that we self-medicate. Yes. If we're not happy or if we want to have more energy, we look for a pick-me-up. And there's a few different ways we can do that. And for a lot of people, food is one of those things. So we just have to change it. And that can be great from a nourishment point of view. But if people are doing extreme things or relying on that sugar or caffeine hit, then we can get into those cycles. So it's kind of I look at it as like a jigsaw puzzle. Like let's try and see what's going on. Let's see what are the issues at the moment and then drill back. And I guess the difference is, as opposed to some specialists who don't want to know about the other things because they'll refer that to the other specialists, like the endocrinologist only wants to know this, the asthma, you know, they want that to go to the respiratory. You know, Link Nutrition was formed to be a link between all the different disciplines and look at everything holistically. So let's try and get to the root cause and actually see what we can manage to try and prevent it.
It was a comprehensive answer. And basically what it is, Dr. Lee is going to hold your hand as a scientist, as a human, as a person who wants you to be better version of yourself without guilt what you're eating, because you can change this. I did change. Now we talk about ancient times, ancient places. And I have in my hand something what it's coming, guys. I can't offer a discount yet, but Dr. Lee is organizing not just a holiday, but a personal upgrade. 6 days in Bali. Okay, I'd like to ask you, 6 days in Bali. What is that about?
It is about, I say it's not only a retreat, it's a reset.
Okay.
So it is, like everyone enjoys a holiday and so many people say, I need a holiday. But then what is the issue? You hear people coming back, you know, I need a holiday to recover from my holiday. You know, they're exhausted. They're exhausted.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So this is in a beautiful way. So it's not a boot camp. It's not super extreme. It's essentially a, you know, luxury wellness holiday in beautiful places of Bali. So it's cedar forest. So there's a few days by the sea and then a few days in the forest. There's cultural bits. It's beautiful food, but it's gentle. To whatever level people want to do. If people want to get the, you know, the full-on gut microbiome, genetics, epigenetics, all of that, we can do that before an end and support. But what I see, most people will come because they want a holiday, they want to have a beautiful time, but they want to prioritise them. They want to come back feeling re-energised and have a bit more clarity on what they want to focus on, as opposed to it's just a holiday and, you know, I'm just eating or drinking too much. It'll be a beautiful break, but they'll get a really good idea of what's happening with them and a few little suggestions. And it's a way to try things. So, you know, we partner with great places, Cookering School, you know, yoga, Pilates, all sorts of lovely stuff that you can try and see what works for you. And then you got the chance of meeting other people and sharing common challenges. And then asking questions. Absolutely no judgment. And it's about focusing on them. So the people I find who really benefit from this is that they've spent their life doing things for work, for family, for kids, for their partner. And now they realize they want to do something for them. And as you said, health is really one of the greatest things that we need to. So they're basically focusing an enjoyable time for them. But actually have an amazing experience, but come back refreshed, renewed, and know the next few steps.
Now I'm going to answer my second time when you asked me what's the health for me. For me, health it is, when I was trying now in Thailand, I said to myself, Dr. Liz, she read my blood a few months ago. She told me, Mario, everything's okay. That's my baseline. So wherever I go, so like I come healthy. So whatever it's happened right now. So it's not chronic. And that's for me, it's happiness. I know I can travel and I feel good. You know what I mean? But the most of people don't. And that's, I'm going to conclude our interview today, guys. I'm going to put in the comment section below Dr. Lee's details. So feel free to contact her, come in touch with her. Even if you're a fitness influencer, nutritional influencer, dietitian influencer, feel free to contact Dr. Lee's. Learn, create a better yourself. Dr. Lee's, thank you very much for being my guest today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mario.